Okay, so now I'm going to do Chapter 8, number 22. So we're supposed to consider the following time series, and we're supposed to construct a time series plot, and then what type of pattern exists in the data, and is there an indication of a seasonal pattern. Then use a multiple linear regression model with dummy variables as follows to develop an equation to account for the seasonal effects in the data. Quarter 1 equals 1 if it is quarter 1, otherwise 0, and then quarter 2 is 1 if it's quarter 2, or quarter 2 is equal to 1 if quarter 2, if not 0, quarter 3 equals 1 if quarter 3, otherwise it's 0. And then we're supposed to compute the quarterly forecast for the next year. So we know how to do the time series, and what I did was I changed it from how it looks here to I just did a period of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 12 because we have 12 different items here. And then I put the values for each of those points in time. And then I just plotted that using, I just highlighted this, went to insert, went over here, chose the scatter one, and then I just inserted it, and that's how I got my plot. Then after that, I wanted to look at the plot and kind of see what does it show me. So I looked at the high points, okay, and then I also looked at the low points, and what were those? Well, the low points turned out to be quarter 2 every time. And so I went ahead and said, okay, well, those are quarter 2. High points always seem to be quarter 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I labeled those quarter 4. And then what I said was quarter 2 is always the lowest point on the graph for each year. Quarter 4 is always the highest point on the graph for each year. Therefore, it looks to be a seasonal trend in the data. And overall, it's really horizontal. So I could also say it's also, if I could spell, a horizontal trend. Okay, because it's pretty much horizontal in shape. It doesn't vary from top to bottom as far as it doesn't go, strictly linear, and it doesn't go the other way either. It's just kind of straight across. All right, so the next thing it says is what we need to do is use the multiple regression model with dummy variables to come up with the equation there. So what I've done is I've brought over my period and values, and what we have to do then is add the dummy variables. So I went ahead and copied my period in because that's all the 12 steps, and then I went and kind of converted it back to the years and quarters. And so year 1 is going to be these 4, then year 2 is those 4, and year 3 is those 4, and then associated quarters 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then remember, it said if it's quarter 1, then you put a 1, otherwise it's a 0. Well, so for year 1, it's quarter 1, and these then are my dummy variables, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. And so since it's quarter 1, that's a 1, those two get 0. Quarter 2, that's a quarter 2, so that gets a 1. Those two get 0. And for quarter 3, that's a 1. Those two are 0. And then for quarter 4, it's just 0 straight across. And then these are just our straight values. And in the scheme of things, if you remember in the book, it says that's the y hat sub t. And so that's going to be what those values are there. And so I do that for each year, and basically if once you get that first one filled in, then you could copy it and then paste it here, because the same thing. 1's going to be a 1, 2's going to be a 1, and 3's going to be a 1 when it's the appropriate quarter, and everything else is going to be 0. And then the next thing we're going to do is the regression analysis. And the regression analysis basically says we're going to go to data, do the data analysis, and we're going to choose regression. And the y is going to be our y values, of course, the y hat t. And our x are going to actually be all of our quarters, which are the dummy variables. We're going to have labels in them because we chose to have that up there. We'll put the output range, put it here, and that's really all we need. We don't need any residuals or anything for this one. And so then I would say OK, which I'm not going to do because I've already got it done over here. And this gives me my output. It gives me my multiple r squared, adjusted r, blah, blah, blah. And really the key thing we're needing to have here is this little bit right here. That's one of the things. And the other thing is we can find the MSE. If it says, well, now what was the MSE? Well, that's just going to be, we go to the SS column, and we take the value for the residual, sum of squares of the residual, and divide by the observations. And so that's going to be our MSE. So the 162.66667 divided by 12, and that's going to give us our residual. And if we actually do that, that's going to be equals that value divided by that value and it's 13.55556. So that's going to be, this whole model basically minimizes the mean squared of the error for this set of time series data. And this gives us our equation that we can use to forecast. And so what it is the value, basically our y, is going to be equal to 77, our intercept, and then minus 10 times quarter 1, then minus 30.3333 times quarter 2, minus 20 times quarter 3. Okay, and so that's going to be the model we use to come up with forecasting our next part of the data, which is what part C says, compute the quarterly forecast for the next year. Okay, so we bring over our equation, and we're going to use that again to forecast the next year. And I also brought over that first little bit of the table here, that this here part. That way, I really didn't have to do much typing of numbers because it's all right here. And if these were any kind of decimal values or anything else, it's always best to use the raw data to get the numbers. And so that's what I did. And what I did was I said, okay, well, that's going to be equal to H2, which is basically the intercept, plus H3 times 1, because we're in quarter 1, and then plus H4 times 0, because it's going to be 0 for quarter 1, plus H5 times 0, because we're also not in quarter 3. And so really, it's just those two really that are taken into consideration in that first one. But because I want to copy down and kind of cheat, then I used all of them in here, and then all I had to do is change from, for quarter 2, I made quarter 1 0, I made quarter 2 a 1, and then here I made quarter 1 and quarter 2 0, and quarter 3 a 1, and then all of them were 0 except for the first one, and then that's going to be my quarter 4. And so that's my forecast values based on our regression analysis that we did over here. And that's using all the dummy variables. So hopefully that makes sense on what we would do to do a question like number 22 from chapter 8.